I started a series 2 weeks ago. We took a week break from it last week because it was parent-child dedication, and Caleb did a great job there on parent-child dedication last weekend preaching. But we started a series 2 weeks ago called Matthew for Everyone. And as I told you 2 weeks ago, I stole this. I'm just being right up front. I stole this title from one of my favorite commentaries on the book of Matthew. Okay, I have 7 commentaries on the book of Matthew. I geek out on commentaries. This is from N.T. Wright's commentary. It's called Matthew for Everyone, and I recommend it to all of you. If you want a commentary that's for everyday people, it's somewhat devotional, it's a wonderful commentary. But I'm calling this series Matthew for Everyone because the whole point of this series is to make Matthew accessible so that when you're reading through the book of Matthew, I want to give you a few key pieces of background information, tools, which will then bring the whole book alive. Because these are ancient documents, right? Like the book of Matthew is almost 2,000 years old. And yeah, we can just read it as we read it. But there's a whole bunch of things that we as modern Christians miss because there's a few important details of context and history that can bring the whole book alive and make it more practical and stuff to our lives. So a couple of things we're doing in this series. We're experimenting. Never done it before. But I'm putting together a devotional each week. So a bunch of you, almost 300 of you, have been on the devotional already, but we're not so far ahead that you can't join now. But every week during this series, I'll preach on a few key passages from Matthew. There's no way we can get through the whole thing. But then during the week, we read, 2 to 4 chapters, and I send out a devotional on Tuesday mornings. And then that way we get through the entire book together. And then a lot of the gaps are filled in that I can't reach while I'm preaching. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about one of the most important things. We're going to come back to it over and over and over again in this series. We talked about 70 AD, all right? 40 years after Jesus' death, the Romans, there's this horrible event. The Romans go into Jerusalem, and they smash Jerusalem, and they tear down the temple, and that was the end of the Old Testament religious system, was in 70 AD. And tons of Matthew, when you're reading through the book of Matthew, and you see Jesus talking about judgment and fire and those sorts of things, lots of Matthew is Jesus prophesying ahead to 70 AD, all right? And we'll come back to that throughout this series, okay? This is one of those key background pieces. But I want to talk about another key background piece today. And that has to do with Jesus' favorite title in the book of Matthew. All right? So there are 3 primary titles that Jesus is given in the book of Matthew. Each one of them is important. It's not just one is important. All 3 are important. All 3 of them have purpose. All 3 of them tell us important things about Jesus. But there is one that is far and away Matthew's favorite for Jesus. And it's key to understanding the book of Matthew. All right, now, just to kind of get you guys involved, I'm going to get you guys all to guess which of the 3 you think is the most common in the book of Matthew. All right? Don't give it away. Who said that? Yes, Stephen. Some of you back there didn't hear it maybe. Okay. So, Son of David, these are the 3 primary titles for Jesus in the book of Matthew. We got Son of David, Son of God, and Son of Man. Now, someone over here already blurted out an answer. And it might have been the right answer. But I'm going to get you just to raise your hands if you think for each one, okay? So how many, and it doesn't matter if you're wrong. These are all important titles for Jesus, all right? So you just think in your head, what is the most common title for Jesus in Matthew? How many think Son of David is the most common title for Jesus in the book of Matthew? Dang it, Stephen. Yeah. How many of you think it's the Son of God? Nobody. I preach at the smartest church in all of Steinbach by far. How many of you think it's the Son of Man? Yeah. You're right. You guys all went to seminary. But let me walk you through this, okay? Son of David gets used 10 times in the book of Matthew. Again, this is an important title for Jesus. This has to do with, in order for Jesus to be the Messiah, he has to be a descendant of David. So this is one of the titles Matthew uses for Jesus in the book of Matthew, is Son of David. Now, it's used 10 times. When it is used, it is almost always used by Jewish people, but not the disciples. Jewish people outside of Jesus' inner circle. Okay, that's Son of David. He's a descendant of David. That's an important title. It's 10 times in the book of Matthew. Son of God, another very important title in the book of Matthew. Obviously, tells us some important things about Jesus, that he's God. It's used a dozen times in the book of Matthew. It's used, interestingly, by Satan a couple of times in Matthew chapter 4. Satan talks to Jesus and says, if you are the Son of God. Demons call Jesus the Son of God. So these are spirits from the spirit world. They have insider information. They call him the Son of God. God 3 times calls Jesus my son, my beloved son. Okay? Peter and the centurion at the cross, there's a few, but mostly Son of God is spiritual entities and insiders. That's Son of God. So we got Son of David, Son of God, and then we have Son of Man, which you guys all knew, 30 times. Okay? Far and away, this is the most common title for Jesus in the book of Matthew. Okay? More than the other two combined. Almost, 3 times more than Son of David, almost 3 times more than the Son of God is the title, the Son of Man. Now, if you think about it, that's kind of like, if I was to guess beforehand, not knowing any of this, I would probably guess that Son of Man is the least important. I mean, it's kind of a weird one for this to be the most important. I mean, Son of God is important, obviously. We got to know Jesus is God. Son of David is important. That makes sense. He's got to be the descendant of David to be the Messiah. Why would Son of Man be so important? Now, a lot of modern preachers come along and they say, well, the reason he's got to be called the Son of Man is because he's human. So these two titles, Son of Man tells us he's human, Son of God tells us he's God. Okay, but that's actually kind of a weird thing to have to say. Nobody in Jesus' day doubts that he's human. Am I right? I mean, sure, 2,000 years later, it's good for us to have a title, Son of Man, so that we remember Jesus is both man and God. He's both. But in Jesus' day, nobody doubts he's a man. They can see him. I mean, imagine you go to a party and I introduce my friend Bill to you. Hello, this is Bill. He is the son of humans. Like, when you actually say stuff that's that obvious, it actually makes things more confusing. Why would you say that? Well, I just want you to know, Bill here is not an alien. Now I have questions. What? Jesus, Son of Man. But never mind the fact that he isn't actually even a son of a man. There's no man in his genetics. If you'll recall, Mary was a virgin. All right? So this is really kind of a strange title for Jesus to be called during his lifetime. And yet this is the one that is most common in Matthew. The other thing that's very fascinating, though, is we saw with Son of David, it was used by, mostly Jewish people outside the inner circle. We see Son of God had some very interesting usage there, Satan, demons, God, Peter. So who is using the title Son of Man in the book of Matthew? And here it gets even more interesting, because there is only one person in the book of Matthew who uses the title Son of Man and applies it to Jesus. I'm not even going to ask you to guess, because you're all going to get it right, because you guys are brilliant. Okay? If you guess Jesus, okay, you would be correct. 30 times. Nobody else calls Jesus the Son of Man, but 30 times Jesus calls himself the Son of Man. In fact, Jesus does not call himself the Son of God. Now, of course, he is the Son of God. I'm not saying he isn't the Son of God. Clearly, he's the Son of God. God says he's the Son of God. But when Jesus talks about himself, Jesus does not say, I'm the Son of God. When Jesus talks about himself, he does not say, I'm the Son of David. Other people say that about him. God says stuff about him. His disciples say stuff about him. But when Jesus talks about himself, he always says, I am the Son of Man, 30 times. This is Jesus' favorite mode of self-identification in the book of Matthew. And it's the one that we would think is the least important. We would think the most important one is to know he's God. It's obvious he was a human. It's good he was the son of David, so he could be the Messiah. But it's really important that he be God. Why would Jesus choose over and over and over again to call himself the Son of Man? All right? And why would he define himself that way? And what does that mean for us today? Why is this a big deal? And does it have any impact for our everyday lives, this understanding? Where is this coming from, and why is Jesus prioritizing this? Well, let's go to one of the passages where Jesus refers to himself this way, and let's look at it. Okay? So this is in Jesus' trial just before his crucifixion. He is before the religious leaders, right? He's at trial. And the high priest said to him, I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. So there's the Son of God title. Now, notice, the high priest does not believe he's the Son of God, but he knows that this is a title people have been applying to Jesus. And so he says, tell us. He wants to catch him in blasphemy. He wants to charge him with something that he can put him to death for. So tell us if you are the Son of God. Now, how is Jesus going to respond to this title and this accusation? Well, let's look. You have said so, Jesus replied. Now, that's a bit awkward, isn't it? This is very interesting throughout the book of Matthew. It's almost like, again, God calls Jesus his son, so we know Jesus is the Son of God. But when it comes to Jesus, it's almost like he doesn't want to say the words, the Son of God. Like, you have said so. He can't deny it, but he's not like, yes, I'm the Son of God. You have said so, he said. And then watch what he now does say about himself. So, high priest says, hey, are you the Son of God? Jesus doesn't want to actually say the words, but he says, you have said so. Yeah, okay, fine. But I say to all of you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man. What? Why is he obsessed with this? You input Son of God to Jesus in the book of Matthew, and the output you get is Son of Man. And again, now to some modern Christians, they think he's emphasizing his humanness. Well, he must be emphasizing his humanness. But why would Jesus emphasize his humanness in this situation? Now, I'm going to show you in just a second that he is not emphasizing his humanness. But I just got to show you one more thing because you're going to see this phrase come up again. So, but I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. So just keep coming on the clouds of heaven in your brains. Okay, that's going to be really important to the rest of the sermon. And, surprisingly enough, actually has some practical implications for our everyday lives. Okay? So are you the Son of God? Yeah. But really, I'm the Son of Man, and you're going to see me coming, sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Now, if Jesus, the title Son of Man, is emphasizing Jesus' humanity, why does the high priest respond like this? Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, he has spoken blasphemy. You don't get called blasphemous for saying, I'm a human being. Okay? And again, modern Christian readers, we read Matthew and say, Son of Man, that's just all about Jesus' humanness. But you don't get accused of blasphemy for admitting you're a human. We're all human. You get accused for blasphemy when you put yourself on par with God. How on earth does Jesus calling himself the Son of Man somehow put him on par with God in these people's minds? He says, why do we need any more witnesses? Look, now you have heard the blasphemy. And they go on to sentence him to death. So why does Jesus call himself the Son of Man? And why do the high priests think that is blasphemy? And the answer is because, again, this is one of those things where, as modern Christian readers, we often miss out on certain things of context, and that's fine. We can get lots from the Bible without knowing the context, but it's amazing how much more we get when we do know the context. Jesus has not randomly come up with this title, Son of Man. I'm a son of a human. He has specifically taken that title from a very specific and famous and important passage of Scripture in the Old Testament that the Jews in the first century were very familiar with. He took it from Daniel chapter 7. In Daniel chapter 7, Daniel has a vision of God's throne room in heaven. Let's go read it. Okay, Daniel chapter 7, starting in verse 9, Daniel has a vision. He gets transported to heaven. He sees the throne room. And as I looked, thrones were set in place. And the Ancient of Days, this has got to be one of the most epic names for God in the whole Bible. One of my favorites. The Ancient of Days took his seat. So Daniel is seeing heaven. All right, he goes on. He says a little more about the Ancient of Days. His clothing was as white as snow. By the way, you might this might seem familiar to you because this is such an important vision of the throne room. It gets referenced back to a couple of times in the New Testament. The New Testament writers use Daniel 7 language when they're describing the throne room. You'll see this in Revelation as well. But the Ancient of Days, his clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. All right, so God's throne is on wheels. Some of this stuff, it's awesome, and it's a little weird sometimes too if we really think about it, but it's awesome, okay? Everything is so bright, it looks like it's on fire. Okay, you say, well, I still don't see a Son of Man in here. Well, Daniel's caught up in this vision. He's seeing heaven. He's being blown away. It's bright. It's amazing. The throne room of God, awesome and awesome. And then a mysterious figure, centuries before Jesus is born, a mysterious figure. Daniel sees a mysterious figure enter this vision, enter into heaven in his vision. And in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like a what? One like a what? Son of Man. Whoa. Coming with the clouds of heaven. Wait a minute. Whoa. Wait a minute. I'm going to put these two passages together. Remember Jesus on trial before the high priest, Daniel 7, a vision. I'm going to put them up right next to each other, okay? Here's Daniel 7. Here's Jesus on trial just before his crucifixion. Daniel 7, in my vision, Daniel's in heaven. In my vision, I see a Son of Man coming on clouds of heaven. Jesus says at his trial, from now on, you will see a Son of Man. He says a few other things, sitting at the right hand of God, which is also in Daniel 7, but I can't fit it all on one screen, coming on the clouds of heaven. Okay, so clearly, Jesus is pulling this title out of Daniel 7. He's not just saying, I'm a human being. He's saying, I am this mysterious figure from Daniel 7, which they all knew about. Now, why would that be blasphemy? Why would being this Son of Man in Daniel's vision be blasphemy? Well, let's read a little bit further in Daniel 7, and let's see what all happens to this Son of Man figure, this mysterious figure in Daniel 7. So we go back to Daniel 7, which again, Daniel is having this vision centuries before Jesus comes along. This is Daniel's vision, centuries before Jesus. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, very important, just remember that word. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. So already we see, okay, there's something special about this Son of Man figure in Daniel 7. Like these are words that often are talked about with God. God has authority and glory and sovereign power. And now this Son of Man in Daniel 7 is going up to heaven and he's getting authority, glory, and power. That's interesting. But what comes next is a real mind blow if you are a Jew living 2,000 years ago. All nations and peoples, not just the Jewish people, but all nations, this is Daniel 7, and peoples of every language worshipped him. Now remember, for the Jewish people, as for us Christians obviously, but for the Jewish people, only God, only the one God is meant to be worshipped. Only God is worshipped. Now think what this is doing to Daniel's brain centuries before Jesus. There's the Ancient of Days on the throne room. Okay, yeah, we worship him. That's obvious. We know that. Okay, good. Now this there's this mysterious Son of Man figure, this human-like figure who comes up to heaven, and he gets worshipped too. Now, again, us in retrospect, we now all go, for us Christians, because we have everything in retrospect, it's like all the mystery is gone. Aha, that's Jesus. But think about what this is doing to someone before Jesus and during the time of Jesus. If this Son of Man figure is worshipped, that means this Son of Man figure is somehow on par with God himself. He's being worshipped. And then there's one more thing Daniel 7 says. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So this mysterious Son of Man figure goes to heaven, he gets authority, then he's worshipped by all the nations, and then he gets a kingdom that will never end. Again, all of us Christians go, yeah, that's got to be Jesus. But now think about the high priests and the religious leaders. When Jesus is the Son of Man, he's not saying, I'm just a human. He's saying something different. He's saying, I am this divine person, this mysterious figure that is somehow on par with God. Maybe he's part of God. They didn't know. We Christians now have a doctrine of the Trinity, 3 in 1. But the priest says, oh, you're calling yourself that. You're not calling yourself a human. You're calling yourself this Daniel 7 figure and divine. That's why they accuse him of blasphemy. All right? That's why it's blasphemy. Again, for us Christians, this is obvious. You say, okay, well, what does this have to do with our everyday life? How does this impact my view of the future, my view of current events? Well, there's one more question we have to answer. Because this part is obvious to us Christians in retrospect about Daniel being about Jesus. But there's something we get very wrong, and that has to do with timing. And because we get that wrong about the timing, we think wrongly about Jesus' kingdom now in the present. You say, okay, well, what do we get wrong? Let's ask this question. When does Jesus come on the clouds? Now, most of us know right away. Well, this is in the future when Jesus comes back to earth to set up his kingdom. Right? In Jesus' second coming. And yes, someday Jesus is going to come back again, right? And set up his kingdom on earth. So anytime we hear, when does Jesus come on the clouds? We hear, oh yeah, that's sometime in the future when Jesus returns to earth. There's just one really big problem with that answer. And let me show you what it is by taking you back to Matthew, because that's not what Matthew thinks. Let me show you. Let's go back to Jesus' trial. Jesus says to the high priests and religious leaders, he says this, but I say to all of you, let's just remind ourselves again, who is the you? Is it us? Like oftentimes when we read the Bible, we just take, anytime we see you, he must be talking to all of us. But is he talking to all of us here today? He's talking to who? The religious leaders. But I say to all of you, okay? And just in case we miss it, he says this, from now on, he says you. He's in this trial before the religious leaders. I say to all of you, these religious leaders, it's 2,000 years ago, from now on, so from their time, from their day, from now on, you, the religious leaders, will see something. The Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Wait a minute. Has Jesus returned to earth yet? But this is 2,000 years ago. These guys are all dead. They're long, long dead. Did they see, from now, I say to all of you, the religious leaders, they're just about to put him to death for blasphemy. You will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. Did you know that there are lots of people who have lost their faith over this very question? Many of you probably haven't even heard about it. But this is actually a pretty big question in apologetics, Christian apologetics. Because there's actually 4 times, this isn't the only passage this happens in Matthew. There are 4 times in Matthew where Jesus says that the people who are right in front of him will see the Son of Man coming on clouds or coming in his kingdom. Matthew 10:23, Matthew 16:28, Matthew 24, and this one in Matthew 26. By the way, if you get the devotional every week, you're going to get a little devotional on each of these. Shameless plug. 4 times Jesus says the people alive in his day would see the Son of Man coming on clouds. Do you know that lots of people, this is a big question in apologetics, lots of people have lost their faith over this because they say based on this that Jesus was wrong. He couldn't have been God. He thought he was coming back in their day and he was wrong. The problem, however, is not with Jesus. Jesus is not wrong. The problem is we don't think about Daniel 7 with this coming on the clouds. We think about his coming on the clouds wrong. So let me ask you this question. In Daniel 7, where is the Son of Man coming to? Earth or heaven? See, us little earthlings think everything is about us. So if Jesus is going anywhere on clouds, he must be going to us. I mean, for most of Christian history, Christians insisted that the sun revolved around us because God had to make the universe revolve around us. And then Galileo invented a telescope and we got humbled. Turns out the universe doesn't revolve around us. Also, turns out in Daniel 7, where is Daniel in the Daniel 7 vision? Is he on earth or is he in heaven? Whoa. Well, that kind of changes things, doesn't it? If Daniel is in heaven, then the Son of Man coming on the clouds is the Son of Man going up to heaven to be given authority and a kingdom and glory. I don't know where I am in my notes, by the way, right now. So I don't know what's going to come up next. So we're going to switch the slide, and I'm going to just go off of that, okay? Here we go. Oh, there it is. It's an overview. Okay. So here's the Daniel 7 overview. Daniel 7 overview. Son of Man goes up to heaven and to God. He's not coming to earth. There in heaven, he is given authority and a kingdom. And from there, all nations worship, not just the Jews. Now, Jesus says to the religious leaders and his disciples 4 times in the book of Matthew, he says, you people will see the day when the Son of Man comes on the clouds. When did Jesus go on clouds up to heaven and get all authority and glory and honor? Feel free to shout this one out. The ascension. Acts chapter 1, after his resurrection. By the way, that's why in a Great Commission, Matthew 28, this is after Jesus' resurrection. He comes to disciples and he says something really powerful. What does he say? Then Jesus came to them and said, what? This is after his resurrection. All what? All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. And then what does he do? He says, by the way, it's not enough for just Jews to worship me anymore. Remember Daniel 7, all nations are going to worship him. So what does he say? Therefore, go and make disciples of all what? All of this revolves around Daniel 7. And then in Acts 1, you can go look this up in your devos this week. That's a famous story where the disciples watch while Jesus gets taken up to heaven. At his ascension, he went up to heaven. Now, is he coming back someday? Absolutely. Absolutely. But now let me tell you why this matters for us as Christians today. Why does it matter? See, we read through Matthew, and every time we see Son of Man is coming on clouds, we're looking forward, oh, Jesus' second coming. And then we're looking in the news. Oh, the signs. By the way, we're going to touch on the signs yet in this series too. But we're going to look at the signs. The signs. Jesus is just about to come back. And when he comes back, everything's going to be okay. Actually, that's not the message of Matthew. Yes, when Jesus comes back, everything will be okay for all of eternity. That's not what Matthew's talking about, though. He's talking about Jesus going up to heaven and getting all the authority. Why would he want to do that? Well, let me tell you after I catch up with myself here. I don't need progressives yet. My wife got progressives almost now, so I'm getting younger than her. Here, this is for your notes. I'll just take a moment. If you want, some of you take notes. The Son of Man went on clouds to heaven at his ascension, Acts 1, fulfilling Daniel 7. So that's when that happened. Okay? Here's why this matters to Matthew and to Jesus. So I'll give you a second. Some of you write slower than others. And you're good. Here's why this matters to Matthew and to Jesus. Matthew didn't want Christians waiting for the second coming to start living the kingdom and trusting that Jesus is in control. And you know what? Christians have been making this mistake for 2,000 years. Every generation, stuff happens in the world. Every generation, this has happened not just for 2,000 years, this has happened for the history of the world. But every generation, since Christ went back to heaven, things happen in the world and Christians panic. He must be just about to come back. It happens constantly. Okay? Genghis Khan in the Middle Ages is taking over everything. Christians are freaking out. The Black Plague is killing everybody in Europe. Literally massive chunks of people. Christians are all freaking out. Jesus has to come back. If he doesn't come back, we're all going to die. World War II and Hitler. Christians are freaking out. Jesus must be coming back. If he doesn't, we're all going to die. 1950s, are the Soviet Union and the United States going to nuke the entire world and take us down with them? And Christians are saying, oh, Jesus must be just about to come back. If he doesn't, we're all going to die. The earth is going to bad places in a handbasket, right? Like it's just going bad places. If anybody had an excuse to panic, it was the people Matthew was writing to. Matthew is writing to Jewish Christians just after 70 AD. So these are Jews who followed Jesus. In the aftermath of 70 AD, the Romans have smashed Jerusalem, their pride and joy, their capital city. Their temple has been obliterated. Even though they're followers of Jesus, this was part of their Jewish culture. Their lives revolved around it. They are living under oppression. Even worse, many of their fellow Jews and their families have rejected them because they blame these Christian Jews for bringing God's wrath through the Romans onto Jerusalem. They've been rejected by their families. They are oppressed by the Romans, and everything they hold sacred has been the festivals, the habits, the things that never changed, the temple, the Jewish religious system, all of that is thrown into upheaval. All of the world has changed. Their world has changed. Hundreds of thousands of the people they know and love are dead, and their fellow Jews reject and persecute them. If ever there was a group of people that is like, we're giving up on this life, Jesus better come back or we're doomed, it was this group. And to them, Jesus says, I'm the Son of Man. And he does not promise them, I'm going to come back in your lifetime and fix it. In fact, he doesn't come back in their lifetime. He doesn't come back for 2,000 years. In fact, he still hasn't come back. He says, what I want you to do is in the midst of that darkness and upheaval and change, I want you to set your focus on the fact that Jesus is already on the throne and his kingdom has already begun. The reason is because we're meant to live out his kingdom prophetically in the now, while we trust that everything's going to be okay, even if he doesn't come back in our lifetimes. So here's our reflection time. We are called to live out Jesus' kingdom now, because it's already started, as if it's already here, because it's already been inaugurated in heaven. We're called to live out the Jesus way now. Not freaking out, oh, the world, it's all going to end, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? It might not. What happens if Jesus doesn't come back for another 2,000 years? You know what's the crazy thing? A lot of Christians think that's crazy. They think it's crazy if anyone suggests, what if Jesus doesn't come back for another 2,000 years? Why would that be crazy? The Christians in Matthew in Jesus' day were certain he was coming back in their day. It's been 2,000 years. We're not meant to put our hope all the way there. Yes, in eternity, yes. Someday he comes back. Someday he fixes everything. In the meantime, we're meant to live that kingdom now, trusting that he is in control and that all will be okay, even if he doesn't come back in our lifetimes. Can we do that in the midst of a dark and hopeless world? When we do this, we actually give tremendous hope. When we actually get confident, oh, Jesus is already on the throne, nothing is out of his control, and I'm going to live in light of that. Now our Christianity actually becomes something that the rest of the world goes, maybe they have something. That's why it's important that Matthew and Jesus emphasize over and over again, Jesus is the Son of Man. Now I want you to bow your heads and close your eyes. Here at Crossview, we always like to take a moment. Let's take a deep breath. We don't get a lot of these in our society. Jesus has already gone to heaven. Yes, he's coming back someday, and that's good. But in the moment, we already have hope now, because he's already fulfilled Daniel 7. He's already on the throne. The kingdom's already started. And we're meant to prophetically live that out now, this week, at work, as the news swirls around us. No need to panic. No need to be scared. Jesus already is on the throne. Thank you, Jesus, that you are the Son of Man. That you have already come on the clouds to heaven. You are sitting in heaven, enthroned in authority, and we have no idea when you're going to come back. We're glad that you're coming back, but in the meantime, we're going to live our lives for you by faith, trusting that things are not all going to fall apart so long as you're on the throne. Thank you, Jesus, for your love for us. Thank you for your sovereign power and authority. Help us to put our trust in you. In Jesus' name we pray. And all God's people said,